there is a pattern in cardiovascular medicine that has been documented across decades, across countries, and across thousands of patients. And yet, almost no one outside the hospital knows it exists. If you are over the age of 50, what I am about to tell you may be the most important thing you hear this week. Monday morning is the most dangerous time of the week for your heart. Not because of stress alone, not because of age alone, but because of a combination of things most people do on Sunday evening without a second thought. I am Dr. Hiroshi. I have spent more than 25 years working with patients in internal medicine and cardiovascular care, and I have observed this pattern more times than I can count. I have sat in rooms with families who lost someone on a Monday morning, healthy enough on Saturday, gone by Tuesday, and in almost every case the warning signs were there. The body had been sending signals for days. No one knew how to read them. What most people do not realize is that the heart does not fail suddenly from nothing. It fails at the point where multiple systems are simultaneously under strain. Monday morning is not random. It is the predictable end point of a chain that begins on Friday night and builds quietly through the weekend. If you understand the chain, you can interrupt it. That is what I want to explain today. Let us begin with the first link in that chain. Most people over 50 sleep reasonably well on weekday nights out of routine. But Friday and Saturday nights are different. They stay up later. They watch television past midnight. They have a glass of wine or a second helping at dinner. By Sunday night, the sleep rhythm has shifted. The body expects to fall asleep later than usual and wake up later than usual. This is called social jet lag, and it is far more damaging than the name suggests. What is actually happening inside the body during this shift is significant. Sleep is not simply rest. Between the hours of approximately 11 at night and 3 in the morning, the body undergoes its deepest cycle of cardiovascular repair. Blood pressure drops, heart rate slows. The walls of the blood vessels relax. The brain clears inflammatory proteins that accumulated during waking hours. This process requires uninterrupted sleep at the right time of night to function properly. When you stay up until 1 or 2 in the morning on a Saturday and sleep until 10 on Sunday and then attempt to wake at 6:30 on Monday morning for work or routine, you have cut that repair cycle short by several hours and 2 consecutive nights. You arrive at Monday morning with a cardiovascular system that has not fully recovered from the week before. Think of it this way. Imagine a machine that runs continuously for 5 days and requires a specific maintenance window each night to remain safe to operate. If you shorten that window on Friday and Saturday and skip part of it on Sunday, the machine is running on Monday without having been properly serviced. The accumulated wear from the previous week is still there, and you're about to ask it to work harder than it has in 2 days. Stay with me for a moment, because the second link is where the biology becomes particularly precise. Every morning before your eyes open, your body begins preparing for waking. Between approximately 4 and 7 in the morning, the brain sends a signal to the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands are small structures that sit above your kidneys, and in response to that signal, they release cortisol. Cortisol is often called the stress hormone, but that description is incomplete. Cortisol is a waking hormone. It tells your body that the day is beginning. It raises blood sugar for energy. It tightens blood vessels to increase pressure. It accelerates the heart rate. It thickens the blood very slightly by increasing the concentration of certain clotting factors. In a healthy, well-rested person, this process is controlled and gradual. The cardiovascular system handles it without strain. But in a person who is sleep-deprived, the cortisol surge is more abrupt, less regulated, and more prolonged. Research published in cardiovascular journals has shown that in adults over 50 who are sleep-deprived, the morning cortisol spike can raise blood pressure by 15 to 25 points higher than in well-rested individuals, sometimes within minutes of waking. On a Monday morning, you are not simply experiencing the normal waking cortisol release. You are experiencing it after 2 nights of disrupted sleep against the backdrop of blood vessels that did not fully relax during the weekend, with blood that is slightly thicker than it should be, and with an arterial system that has had no proper rest cycle since Friday. The surge lands on an unprepared system, and in arteries that are already carrying deposits, already stiff, already working harder than they once did. That surge can be the final pressure that cracks a plaque and triggers a clot. This is not a theory. This is the mechanism that cardiologists have identified as the most likely explanation for why heart attack rates in multiple large studies are measurably higher on Monday mornings, specifically between 6 in the morning and noon, than at any other time of the week. I want you to pay attention to the next part because this is where Sunday specifically plays a direct role. Sunday is often the heaviest eating day of the week. For many people, it is the day of a large family meal, a later breakfast, a second helping, a dessert that would not be touched on a Tuesday. None of this feels dangerous. It feels like rest. It feels like reward. But a large meal, particularly one heavy in refined carbohydrates or saturated fat, triggers a cascade of physiological responses that carry into the night and into the next morning. Blood sugar rises sharply after a large meal. Insulin is released in a surge. Triglycerides, the fat particles in the blood, increase for 4 to 6 hours after eating. The viscosity of the blood rises slightly. The heart must work harder to move thicker blood through vessels that are already contending with inflammation from a weekend of irregular sleep. When this meal is eaten late in the evening, the problem compounds. The digestive system requires significant blood flow to process a large amount of food. The heart pumps harder. Blood pressure rises at the exact moment the biology expects it to be dropping. The body's preparation for its nightly repair cycle is interrupted before it even begins. And then there is the matter of the Sunday evening sodium load. Prostates, foods, restaurant meals, sauces, cured meats, the foods that frequently appear on a Sunday table often carry 2 to 3 times the sodium of a carefully prepared weekday dinner. Sodium raises blood pressure by causing the body to retain water and increase the volume of fluid in the circulatory system. That excess fluid does not clear overnight. It is still present on Monday morning when the cortisol surge arrives. If this sounds familiar to you, I would like to hear from you in the comments. Write the word yes if you recognize this pattern in your own Sunday evenings. I ask because understanding how widespread this is helps me know where to focus these conversations. There is one more factor, and I want to address it carefully because it is real and it is often dismissed. The psychological weight of Monday morning is not imaginary. The anticipation of returning to responsibilities, the end of weekendese, the first awareness of the week's demands when the alarm sounds, these are genuine physiological events. Psychological stress activates the same sympathetic nervous system response as physical danger. Adrenaline is released, the heart rate accelerates, blood vessels constrict. In a cardiovascular system that has overly strained from the reasons I have described, this additional activation is not trivial. In patients over 50 whose arteries carry decades of accumulated plaque, even a small additional constriction, even a brief surge of adrenaline on a Monday morning can reduce blood flow to the heart muscle below a critical threshold. The heart muscle begins to receive less oxygen than it requires. If that deficit is brief and the person is otherwise strong, nothing happens beyond some chest tightness or fatigue that goes unnoticed. But if the deficit is deeper and the system is already overloaded, what happens next is what brings families to hospital waiting rooms on Monday afternoons. I remember a patient I will call Matsuda. He was 68 years old when I first met him, quiet, organized, the kind of man who kept meticulous records of his medications and could tell you his exact blood pressure reading from 3 months prior. He walked every morning. He did not smoke. His cholesterol was borderline but managed with medication. By most measures, he was doing well. What Matsuda did not consider relevant and therefore never mentioned to me until much later was his Sunday evening routine. Every Sunday, his daughter's family would visit. There would be a large dinner, sake, a late night, sometimes past midnight. He would sleep in on Monday until 7:30 instead of his usual 6, feeling as though he had recovered. He would then have a strong cup of coffee, skip his usual light breakfast in favor of leftovers from the night before, and leave for his appointment or errand feeling, in his words, perfectly fine. Over the course of 2 years, I watched his resting blood pressure on Monday morning appointments consistently run higher than his readings on any other day. I noted it. I mentioned it to him. He listened carefully, as he always did, and then returned the following month with the same numbers. The year he turned 70, Matsuda experienced a heart attack at 7:40 in the morning on a Monday. He survived. He was fortunate, and he was close enough to the hospital that the team could act quickly. When I sat with him during his recovery, he said something I have thought about many times since. He said, "Doctor, I knew the Sunday evenings were not good for me. I simply did not believe that something so ordinary could carry that much consequence. That is the sentence I want you to hold on to. Ordinary does not mean harmless. The good news is that each link in this chain is modifiable. You do not need to eliminate Sunday dinners or restructure your entire life. You need to make small, consistent adjustments that your cardiovascular system will feel even if you cannot. Begin with sleep. On Sunday nights specifically, make an agreement with yourself about the latest time you will go to bed. If you need to wake at 6:30 on Monday, your body needs to begin its winding down process by 9:30 at the latest. This is not about being rigid. It is about giving your arteries the repair window they require. With Sunday meals, the goal is not deprivation. It is timing and composition. Eat the main meal earlier in the afternoon when possible. Reduce the sodium in the evening portion of the day. If you have a heavier meal, allow at least 3 hours before lying down. Drink a full glass of water in the early evening to keep blood viscosity from rising overnight. On Monday morning itself, do not rush immediately into high activity. Give your body 15 to 20 minutes to move through the cortisol surge at its own pace before standing up abruptly, exercising intensely, or consuming a large dose of caffeine. A slow start is not weakness. It is cardiovascular intelligence. If you are over the age of 50, what I am about to tell if you have a doctor whether your current dosing schedule provides adequate coverage in the early morning hours. Research has shown that for some patients, evening dosing provides stronger protection during the vulnerable morning window than morning dosing. This conversation is worth having. I want to be clear about something before we finish. Understanding this pattern is not meant to create fear. Fear does not protect the heart. It strains it. What I'm describing is a mechanism that you now have the knowledge to interrupt. Every one of the factors I have outlined is modifiable. Sleep rhythm, meal timing, sodium intake, morning routine, medication timing. These are not beyond your control. The body, even in the 7th or 8th decade of life, has a remarkable capacity to respond when the conditions improve. Blood pressure that has run high for years can stabilize. Cortisol surges that were unchecked can be softened with even modest changes in sleep consistency. The cardiovascular system is not simply declining, it is responding to the inputs it receives. Change the inputs and the response changes. Matsuda, after his recovery, made exactly the adjustments I described. He was disciplined about his Sunday evenings. He did not stop enjoying his family dinners. He simply moved them earlier, reduced his late night eating, and began Monday mornings with a slower, quieter first half hour. His subsequent Monday morning blood pressure readings were the most consistent they had been in years. Ordinary habits carry consequences that are not always visible until they are. Now you understand why Monday morning is not a coincidence. And now you have the information to approach it differently. If this conversation was useful to you, I would ask you to subscribe to this channel. Each week I share clinical observations from my years of practice with the goal of giving you the information that is often missing from a standard appointment. You deserve to understand what is happening inside your body, not just what to take for it. Subscribe and I will continue this conversation with you.